Speaking of green screens, it's going to be goats v goats. I say green screens because Luke has a shield.
I say green leaves instead.
Yeah, sure, yeah. And that was a far better transition. It is considered.
Both teams are playing standard 3-3 here. Global Esports are not going to waste too much time.
Sort of push back the first rotation. Green leaves take a different option. Take a bit of damage in that rotation, but they've now been able to push forward a little bit, take some high ground.
So the interesting thing here to note is, because Global Esports got quite aggressive and gave up their high ground, Green Leaves gave them that space, instantly repushed, and took that high ground for themselves. So rotation-wise, they're in a decent spot, but they still have to find a way to get on top of the point.
The thing that could actually really help Green Leaves here is how much ultimate charge Cloud has. An early Transcendence, a sort of tempo ultimate, could be huge for pushing onto the point, indeed on top of Global Esports.
And they're so far ahead as well. Look at all the angles they've taken. They've got high ground on both sides.
That's a really great commit though. Good focus fire to finish off 10, and Green Leaves actually have to start turning tail here. They really need to decide whether they want to commit more ults. They choose no, they back out.
And this is just as Transcendence comes on. You can imagine that if 10's alive right now, they go into the Transcendence, they probably look to win this fight. But if you are Global Esports and you do see, okay, we're being surrounded on all sides, on the point, on the left side high ground of the cafe, on the other high ground in the middle, we have to deal with one of these areas. They go for 10, they go on the cafe, they get that player advantage and they win.
And the time that that's taken now has allowed Xeon Flux to meet Cloud in terms of having that ultimate for this fight. They've also got more at their disposal across the other members, so it's suddenly Green Leaves behind where they were ahead.
And a really painful kind of reset they had to take, and a couple of minutes now nearly off the clock, nearly at that 2-minute mark already, and no ultimates being expended, which does tell you that if Global Esports win this one, we're going to be down to just 1 minute.
It's a bump down there onto Sonairo, so kind of forces the entry. Green Leaves
big.
go, losing Cloud. Xeon Flux snipes that one out, and Green Leaves are not where they want to be right now. They know even if they commit ultimates, their opponent has far more, and their opponent doesn't need to commit ultimates. That is a really tough loss to cop for Green Leaves.
I'll tell you what, the next one's going to be a very bloody brawl. Both teams are going to have basically 6 ultimates here, just waiting on Faith, and they still get a little bit of time left on the rally armor being used by Lil Rag, so even the effect of that ultimate's still kind of available.
Yeah.
It's about 1:30 now, but Green Leaves having lost every fight in a row, they've got to get something off this or they're going to be in dire straits.
Like, there's this tiny window while Faith's ultimate is still not available, and that's the only point at which they have an advantage.
Rally armor's losing itself now, so that's one gone.
Aside from that, it's just going to have to be out execution from Green Leaves. They start off with a grab, there's going to be Transcendence to answer, self-destruct forward. Oh, Shadow not the hottest, but oh man, Scenario getting stunned out to allow that Earth Shadow to kill him off is very, very big. The grab from Kim Gute, though, not too great. Green Leaves down a member, but better in ultimates, and now even in members, not so much. They lose Pocky, but keeping it ahead now as they find Xeno Fly. So they've suddenly been able to flip it back on its head, just kind of absorbed everything Global Esports threw at them, knowing that if they survived enough members, they had more ultimates to work with.
And the best part of Scenario comes back as well in time, whereas Global Esports still waiting for members. They lose Faith, which is going to affect their ability to retake it.
Never lose Faith.
Doesn't really look like they will retake based off that, because they really need a Lucio to walk in.
Green Leaves, look, the Shadow's not much, but it's more than what can be said for Global Esports, who only have a sound barrier. A good Shadow could maybe do it here for Green Leaves if they want to preserve momentum.
You can see as well, with the time remaining, if Green Leaves didn't win that fight, they would have been in a very bad position. So moving into B now, still got a bit to work with. They've got to make up for a couple of minutes worth of lost time just on this point if they want to finish the map.
10's getting real close to a grab, though. He's done a good job of charging that one up, so that's another one they got. That's a Shadow out.
One.
Only finds one in Faith, sound barrier as an answer, and they get kills as well. That's super rough. If that counter attack hadn't worked, Green Leaves would have had a big advantage beyond that point. Instead, they lose members, and Global Esports start to even up the ultimates.
And GE responds so quick as well. Okay, Xeon Flux on his back, sound barrier straight away. He's going to be just fine. The rest of us going to push forward as quickly as we can, clean up as many members as we can, thread in our own Earth Shatter, and now they can save that for the next engagement. And we already talked about the lack of time for Green Leaves. Well, can't really afford to be losing too many fights here.
Yeah, and this is already off to a bit of a dodgy start here. Green Leaves going to have to commit that grab. Transcendence in, doesn't quite get there in time for Lil Rags. Cloud has already committed his Transcendence though, which means Kim Gute could find a very high value ultimate here. No good defensive options. It's a 1-for-1. Losing Luke is big. Sonario staying alive for now. If they can keep him up, then that's really big for them. No, they cannot, and they lose Pocky's mech at the same time. And again, Global Esports stick through that one, even with the early deaths, and just get more value.
And honestly, it seemed fairly even at the beginning of that engagement, but Kim Gute had a slightly later Graviton Surge. Luke threw down an Earth Shatter super early that didn't do too much. And off the back of that Graviton Surge, they're able to secure their fight. Green Leaves reset very quickly, finally get themselves onto the card, and this is off the back of reinforcements required for Global Esports before they can fight again.
Bucky's still not in his mech here, and he ends up going down to a self-destruct. That's about as brutal as it gets here. I mean, I feel like that shouldn't have taken Green Leaves by surprise. I feel like they should not have just lost a member to a charge and self-destruct there.
Well, Global Esports, they don't take too long to get themselves back into action. Like I said, they only need to wait for a few reinforcements, which is why they even gave up cart positioning. But as soon as they got their members back, they went straight back in, self-destruct, getting the opening. Now they're playing very far forward, looking for some early damage, early picks.
This could really cost Global Esports if they miss-execute. Counter shatter there from Scenario. They find Luke. Pocky's low, though. Trying to rescue him with the Transcendence. Finally going in with that one is Green Leaves as well, and they really played that down to the wire. Pocky lost the mech and Scenario nearly went down, but instead they are able to come out the better of that fight, just barely. They have Global Esports on the retreat, but they don't really get many cleanup kills as Global Esports retreat.
So this push very likely now will go into overtime, even if we do cap B. So Green Leaves, they have to be winning from here on outwards. They need to be looking for these engagements properly, not losing too many members, keeping the overtime ticking. And for Global Esports, they can find one good engagement here, they can stop this push immediately.
Pocky does get back in the mech. He's super conservative, I've noticed, when he's in that pilot form. He's recharging the mech, but he's back in it. Kim Yute ready to commit. Sound barriers there from Xerafi.
Those are the real things you have to look out for here in terms of counters. Pocky also has a self-destruct here. Xenofly just about, and now they have the ability to combo.
Green Leaves, they're charging up some ultimates of their own, though. Global Esports might just need to press the go button here, or they might lose a bit of a window. There's the grab. Sound barrier to answer. Both self-destructed from Xenofly. Will it get value against Pocky? That's something. Scenario low as well, and the Shadow didn't get much. Grab comes in, they keep Scenario up. And now Cloud's got a Transcendence, goes ahead and commits it to try and stay ahead in the fight. Ultimates all off the board, and it's Global Esports with a numbers advantage. So hard work ahead for Green Leaves as Scenario barreling towards another ultimate, but also eating a lot of pressure. Luke eats more, though. Great Discord all placement, and 10 just drills them down with damage. Green Leaves have now reinforced on this cart. Kim Yute, the stun gets finished off. Pocky also harassing around the side, and suddenly it's chaos for Global Esports. It's looking like they're slowly but surely going to get muscled off this point.
We may need to see some more ultimates out of here. Scenario is going to drop that Shatter, is going to pick up a couple as well.
It has paid off, at least for the time being. Luke's back out, but not for long, and that's going to look like the last gasp of defense for Global Esports as the cap comes through. Not a lot of time left for Green Leaves, but that is good progress.
And picking up Luke at the sort of middle stages of that fight so important. If they don't get that kill, if they lose the neutral, that would have been it. But because they get Luke so early, they're able to snowball effectively, despite the ultimates not really having the kind of fix for either side. The dust settles, goes into the neutral, and whoever gets the opening frags there, whoever gets the player advantage, can really take it home, especially in overtime where respawn times extra long, very difficult to reinforce, and Green Leaves now on their way through to C, but it doesn't get easier. They have less than 1 minute and a lot of distance to cover.
There was actually a 5 versus 6 though. Pocky was dead. That's a really poor grab, unfortunately. They do catch a couple of members. Does get the Transcendence, but you'd rather have got more out of that grab. At any rate, 10 does have good damage, trying to drill around the side. Good angle on Luke. He could be in trouble. 10 does need to be careful to not eat too much spam, because here's the grab in from Kim Yute. There's the answer from Cloud now as Luke goes down. That's decent.
Oh, wow.
Oh, Jiminy Christmas! Xenofly finds so many. Call the guy Venus Flytrap for how many bugs he catches, and that is a gong to ring out for Global Esports on the defense.
The real irony is it's Green Leaves on the other side, but for Global Esports, it's Kim Yute, the Graviton Surge combo directly into the self-destruct, and couldn't block out all the damage. Unfortunately, you saw Scenario up in the air. Shield was up in the air as well. Teammates exploded. Now finally into the overtime once again. They have to win this.
And that was a fight that Green Leaves were winning before that. Now they come in with less than another to work with. That's already Scenario dead. That's really good Earth Shatter there from Luke. They've just piled on the pressure. Green Leaves not going to be able to get any more progress here. It's all going to come down to their defense. You've got to say, though, for how little time they had for most of those stretches, they did get good cut progress, but this is where it will end.
Unfortunately, Green Leaves, it was a decent effort. Took them a while to get here. You could even said it was going to be difficult to get to B. Last stitches of effort here. Even see now 50 on the Doomfist.
They're trying, man. They're trying. It's Valiant, but they're not on the card anymore, unfortunately. And I mean, that one self-destruct. Look, if it hadn't been for that, I could see Green Leaves winning that fight, at least getting closer to the cap, if not capping out after a subsequent fight. So that just completely hamstrung their ability to close out the map or even get more progress. But the defense for Green Leaves is what won them Paris, and it could still win it for them here.
So now what you do see quite a few times in a row, and I believe this is the combo here, so you can see Graviton Surge, self-destruct in the air.
Absolutely amazing angle from Faith.
From Faith, straight into the air, 3 members getting caught by that. But if this didn't even happen, the only way that Green Leaves can actually win is by getting a momentum push all the way to the end, because they're about to approach the overtime regardless. And one thing that you do see consistently out of Global Esports on this map on their defense is after we transition from one point to the other, from A to B, Global Esports instantly want to fight there. From B to C, it was a little bit of a 50-50, but eventually you have a position where Global Esports absolutely forced to reset on the Green Leaves, and every single time Green Leaves get reset, they lose so much momentum and so much time. When you've pushed into overtime just to cap B, and you only have a minute 30 into B, if you're not snowballing from there and you do get reset, it's very unlikely for you to actually finish that map. So it probably would have been very difficult regardless, and to get to see it all would probably be a bit of a win in their books, gives them some room to defend.
I would say over the course of that attack, though, Green Leaves' execution did get smoother and smoother to an extent, and we saw that most evidently, I'd say, in the overtime fight approaching B. But at any rate, the defense is what is going to count the most. We're still largely on the mirror, but Cloud is going to run the Ana here.
See if the opening nade catches anything here. Knows his angle to work with.
No, unfortunately, that's a no.
And it's going to be the Ana versus Zen kind of gameplay, and Cloud needs to do a lot of work, and
that's a really gross
a lot of damage.
Sonaro's in so much trouble now. He's going to go down. There's just no surviving that. And again, Faith setting up the plays with that bump there, with the boop on the right click. And that's super rough. That's such a quick push for Global Esports.
And I think if you're Green Leaves, what you do want to have is, okay, you want to start a fight early. You want to have Cloud in an angle where you can drop a bayonet. He does drop it, lands on the Faith. That's the only person. They don't pick up that kill.
Yeah.
And now Global Esports just capping through A, already taking some early ground, seeing if Green Leaves maybe want to go for a retake here, pushing them away and saying, probably don't want to go for this one. We're just going to get the point here.
You got to start keeping tabs on Faith as well. This guy's just looking to do the same thing again. They know he's there, but he could just find Sonaro again with where Sonaro's positioned on this veranda.
Faith nearly went down though, so he does have to be careful himself, because that could just be a free pick. And Green Leaves know they want to get aggressive. They had a quick reset. They gave up the entire point, which means they can now hold this choke.
They also know Faith is still behind them, which means Global Esports can't push in too fast. Sonaro's still taking a lot of heat, though. He keeps getting super low, realizes he's going to die, figures he might as well try swinging some damage before that, and they will end up trading for loot, plus Little Rake's going down. The grab for the moment there, but Green Leaves have managed to get through this one. That's a really late Transcendence from Xeon Flux. Not quite sure what the plan was there.
Yeah, decided maybe he could save the team, saw the grab come through, or rather his own grab come through, losing a bunch of members. And they have player advantage here, so they want to, okay, get quite aggressive, maybe something happens. Let's take a look at how this opening play happens.
Faith goes over the top here. This is, I mean, I would say quite clever, but it shouldn't be too unexpected. Just able to get down, I mean, even only getting Sonaro would have been nice, but he got, I believe, also 10, which was just super great.
Meanwhile, Rav used by 10, self-destructive play as well.
Xenoflame, hold on a tick. Pocky's found a better one. You'd much rather take the 3 over the 2. The numbers speak for themselves, and that's actually Green Leaves holding at this choke once again. They've really managed to grind Global Esports to a halt.
And like I said, self-destruct's into play, but the difference is Graviton Surge set up the 1 for Green Leaves, and they were able to get the 3 versus the 2. Losing the 2 is pretty bad. They still do have to wait for reinforcements, which they're currently doing as we speak. And this is where Green Leaves now are going to lose a bit of space, but they have ultimates to play with, and they've got to get back in quick.
Need a top off 10 there, got a little bit low. They've got the ultimates to work with, Shatter in from Luke. Didn't really do much. Sonaro's one looking a little bit hotter. Sound Barrier's there for the answer though. Green Leaves going to start committing. They commit a Sound Barrier. Doesn't save Pocky's mech though, so arguably this is a numbers disadvantage. Sonaro, that's a massive numbers disadvantage now. Just gets drilled down and not willing to commit the Transcendence to save, and at this point there's no point in using it. Green Leaves have been flattened.
The problem is he got 100 to 0 in this case, 500 to 0 so quickly that Cloud can't really anticipate that. He's on the backline thinking, okay, if we take a bit of damage, we will use Transcendence, but Sonaro gets one-shotted essentially, and you just can't save him in that sort of position. They will have to rely on now this final bit of defensive positioning as the cart rolls to the finish line onto B. Still a lot of time, though. Global Esports are well ahead in par.
And Cloud has at least saved that for this upcoming grab. There it is, out already. They keep his members alive, self-destruct. Once again, Xeno fly! They're setting these up so gorgeously. There's nothing a Transcendence can do about that. It's just insta-kill. And that's a gong ringing out in the defense for Green Leaves. A lot of time left on the clock for Global Esports.
And this time was set up from Luke. He drops the Shatter as the self-destruct is flying in.
Oh, this is
maybe
so
even look to get some respawn kills as well. And this is members that respawn quickly before the cut was over the line. And that means extra stagger kills, extra ultimate charge going through. And for Global Esports, a real potential to snowball. And they don't even have to finish the map. They don't have to get to the end. They just have to get to where Green Leaves finished, which is only a little bit away.
And that's why being able to get those extra kills there on the respawners is so massive, because that's one extra spot that Green Leaves
corner away.
At. They've just got to go now. I mean, again, good positioning from Global Esports to hamper Green Leaves' approach.
Maybe looking for a grab here, because grab is the only option. 10 has to drop this one. It has to be perfect. But even so, Xenoflux can counter, which is a big issue.
And if Xenofly, like you said, if he eats it, then that's even that off the table altogether. Xenoflux can just get more value. That's already a good shatter. Sonaro's dead, and here's the main one you want to follow up that grab with. Self-destructing from Pocky's got to be big. It's not, and that's even more members dead. That'll be all she wrote as Global Esports with plenty of time on the clock. A much stronger defense, a much stronger offense. Global Esports look like a brand new team after the break.
3-13, I believe, was what they finished with, and that's just a ton of time for Hollywood. They basically didn't get stopped on A, B, or C. Huge players coming through from Faith, from all the other members, landing Earth Shatters. We're still seeing, huge self-destruct combos coming in as well over the course of, like you said, defense and offense. I would even argue on the defense for Global Esports, there were times when you felt like on A, on B, they could have held the map as well.
Certainly, yeah. Green Leaves, I mean, I don't want to say they struggled, because actually, in a lot of more neutral fights, they did a lot better, but honestly, Global Esports' defense, it was just that much stronger, and it does seem that there are times where Green Leaves don't quite get the value necessary out of some of their ultimates.
So this is where I do have to, put onto the table that Global Esports, at least from what we can tell, off of the more long, long-winded 3-3 mirrors here, where you play it over the course of a full attack phase, a full defense phase, where both teams basically do have that gentleman's agreement, do shake their hand and say, okay, this is the mirror that we're going to play across the entire map. Overall, on both sides of the coin, Global Esports outperformed Green Leaves. Now, you look at Paris, bunkers in play, different story. You look in Nepal, a couple of other comps in play, different story. But on Hollywood, very clear now, Global Esports outperforming in the 3-3 mirror.
And part of that is the macro play. Part of it is, like I said, the value you get from ultimates. Like, if you're setting up your ultimates, your high-impact tools, better than the other team, and I mean, look, it's not just, getting a cool Lucio boot to set up a self-destruct. It's also, you throw down grab, your Reinhardt is well set up to get some damage on top of that grab, even if they've maybe got some kind of defensive tool. If they use Transcendence, maybe you can charge someone out to get a pick. There's a lot of other things that you do there, and we're not seeing those same things out of Green Leaves. In fact, the number of times we'll see 10 commit a grab and then Sonairo dies within just a few seconds of that, it's just not going right.
You also do have to credit individual playmaking here, the individual mechanics, which is why we go back to Faith. Okay, he's in position right on that first push, drops Sonairo onto the ground, you get that main tank kill straight away, you have combo plays towards the end where he finds the right angle for the boot, just as the grab finishes. Now the timing is specific here because the grab has to complete, the self-destruct still has to have time to explode after the grab is completed, such that then you can boot them. If it's too early, they're still in the grab, they don't move out of the grab. If it's too late, then the self-destruct didn't line up or the damage wasn't there, then it doesn't happen. It has to be from 3 different angles, basically perfect execution. That's what it ends up being.
And again, we're seeing that now out of Global Esports. They look a little bit revitalized after the break. They look a lot cleaner, a lot more coordinated, and able to set up really any kind of play based on the tools they have available. It's now on Green Leaves to step up as well. If they aren't able to execute as well as what Global Esports are in a lot of those setups, then they're going to lose the series.
We do have Global Esports on match point now. Haven't lost just yet and still may not lose. We're going to go to a 4th map. Will be played on the Escort game mode. So let's go ahead and find out what that's all about.
Welcome to Watchpoint Gibraltar. This is Escort. 2 teams face off as either defenders or attackers. This is the payload. The attacking team has a limited amount of time to escort the payload along a set path containing 3 checkpoints. The payload only moves forward when an attacker stands near it. Defenders can delay the payload's movement by standing nearby at the same time. To get moving again, attackers must clear away the defenders by force. Every time the payload reaches a checkpoint, the attackers score 1 point and gain additional time on the clock. If even one attacker is near the payload when the clock runs out, the game enters overtime. This extends play indefinitely until the attackers are either cleared off the payload or they gain more time by reaching a checkpoint. The round ends when the payload reaches the destination or when time runs out. Teams switch sides each round. Whichever team scores the most points and escorts the payload farthest wins.
Back to Rialto, and this is where teams will have to decide, okay, is it going to be Global Esports now 3-1 as a result? Green Leaves, do they take us to a map 5 by winning Rialto? Again, wouldn't be surprised by that result, but also based on the way that Global Esports played Hollywood, the 3-1 does also seem more and more likely.
It certainly does. I will add a caveat to that, though. The 3-1 feels likely if we just get another mostly 3-3 mirror. Green Leaves, they have other options. We've seen them play them. We haven't necessarily seen the DPSs, but if they've got them at their disposal, this is the time to use them because it could give them an edge to at least take this to a tiebreaker.
What I will say to that is Rialto historically has been a lot of 3-3, especially on B and C. It's A though. This is where I want to see if teams are going to pull something different for GE. They know what they want to play. Faith is in position to get some boops again. And Green Leaves going to go for at least a Sombra variety.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really expecting the Tracer and Genji to stick around, but I am glad to see Pocky back on the Sombra. It did get some good value out.
I've seen him.
Yeah, there we go. Spotted, but...
Good play by Xerafi, by the way, just booping him away. They're looking into the skies. You can see here, notice very quickly, and now a bit of an easier push.
Ooh, Luke eats some chunks. He's going to have to back up. Gets hacked out as well, so eats a few more from Pocky. Gives a good bit of ground for Green Leaves.
And this is where they got extra damage. Little Rax chunked out as well. Green Leaves can push this one.
Oh, man. Xerafi too keen for a boof around the side, and Global Esports are all over it.
And this is where Green Leaves had done the early damage. Oh, Scenario, is he going to get alive? Just managed to do so.
Nope.
Teammates.
50's not so lucky.
50, yeah, like you said, not going to make it out himself. And again, the problem being they did some decent early damage, then lost Xerafi, and that kind of just undid all the work.
And they seem to get so surprised, right? They seem to get so surprised whenever Global Esports react or counterattack or do anything reacting to what Green Leaves are doing. It always seems to catch kills.
Now, what I'm impressed by this time around is you see Xerafi contesting on the high ground Faith a lot, so the two Lucios keeping tabs on each other while the teams look for the next engagement, and for Green Leaves taking the high ground approach.
Did see Luke looking to wrap around the side. Oh, Pocky going down there is, I mean...
Too greedy.
This keeps happening, man. Green
Should have translocated.
That's the thing, I mean... And again, there's that element of surprise where they're like, oh, whoops, they're doing something about me being here. It's like they're not expecting it.
And I think for Pocky as well, he's close to the EMP, so he's thinking if I stick around a bit longer, maybe lose line of sight, I get this EMP up, but costing him his life and getting that respawn just slows things down so much. And we're in the sort of space now where, again, it's nearly even 2 minutes gone, and Green Leaves have not made that much progress looking for a big EMP here, but you've also forced no ultimates out of Global Esports just yet, and they will respond with the Transcendence.
Pocky finally has that EMP, and just took so much extra. I mean,
look at Faith.
That's the thing, he's so ready for it every single time. Scenario already goes down. They do try and preempt the push in from Global Esports with the EMP, but honestly, the answers are still there. Green Leaves looking to push out of this one, though. Their own grab's going to come in, and Xeon Flux has already committed himself a Transcendence. Still finding kills, though. And, I mean, Green Leaves throwing everything they had in that. They even had some good connection, but they never really finished off Kim Butte despite sitting alone in the grab. And
yeah, well, I'll tell you what, the damage focus, Sally, just isn't there. If you're dropping an EMP, you're not able to win off that. That's a big problem. Now, I will say, look, the sort of counterpoint to that is Global Esports did have responses. They had the Transcendence, they had their own ultimates, they were prepared, they were able to counter it, but still for Green Leaves, like you mentioned, Kim Q-Tank could have been a member. He was just sitting alone in the grab. He didn't go down either, and for Green Leaves, a huge reset now, 1 minute marker, they got to get their ults back, and they still got to push.
It's almost like they're thinking, oh, we'll do this. And then they miss better opportunities right in front of them. I mean, I don't want to speak too absolutely, but that's a nice little shatter on the backside from Luke. Largely reacted to, though. That's going to be sound barriers out from both sides. Global Esports is one of
look at EMP.
So they've still got a health advantage. EMP could be a factor, but Scenario might be dead before it comes up. Indeed, he will be. And now Pocky's going to die too. And, like, how many times can this keep happening for Green Leaves?
And part of this issue is you see the setup for Green Leaves, and you see Faith from the back here push the Scenario down with the boop, and then suddenly Green Leaves, they lose their temper. They're saying, okay, well, we have to go now because our main tank is already in the fray. He's implicated. We have to do something about this, and that's not really when they want to push, and that's part of the issue. And that's Global Esports forcing the pacing of the game against Green Leaves, and the pacing is such that Scenario goes down, and then the EMP is available, and then they have to reset instead of pushing it.
Here's Xeon Flux, ready to react to it. They just know exactly what Green Leaves' game plan is, and so Green Leaves get no value out of that ultimate.
Once again, same thing.
Anything else coming up available? Scenario needs to be rescued here. And Transcendence just a fraction of a hair too late. And with Scenario dead, unless they get a lot of really high impact kills, I do not see them winning this fight, especially with Transcendence now not available as the grab comes through from Kim Q-Tae. 50's rally doesn't even last all that long. He's already dead. And I mean, how many times can that happen for Green Leaves? Well, the answer is exactly this many, because this is as far as the payload will go.
And this now, for Global Esports, has suddenly become an incredibly winnable game for them. Not that it's not been winnable, but at this sort of point where the cart only makes it around that...
It's almost a freebie.
That first, bend into the courtyard, you're expecting them to just take this. There's almost no way that Global Esports shouldn't be able to win here. And it is somewhat disappointing because you look at Paris, it was definitely quite a high for the series where it's 1-1 apiece now. Green Leaves, they take a map, but ever since we went to Hollywood and now to Rialto, it's been pretty downhill for them. And for Global Esports, just taking control of the game and not letting it go.
And it does feel like Green Leaves' execution kind of dropped off a bit of a cliff here on Rialto. And look, one part of it is that sort of, it's the lack of reactionaryism on, if that's even a word, on their own part, not spotting those opportunities. You have a grab on Kim Q-Tae, there's no way he can stay alive as Bubble is down, and he walks away. He doesn't even take damage. Where are Green Leaves? What are they shooting
He took
at
half
there?
damage from one play. 50 was the one that was trying to get him down, but that's about it.
And that's not even the... I mean, yeah, sure, you want to be putting damage in from whoever, but 50's never going to kill Kim Q-Tae on his own, not realistically. It's like, what is the rest of the team shooting at? Because nobody else was dying.
I'll tell you what, that's a symptom of the problem. The main problem is, okay, lack of focus there. Having your tempo stolen away from you by players like Faith, who's the Lucio player on the other side, and other things happening where you don't really want to be committing in certain scenarios, but you're forced to, or maybe you should be committing in certain scenarios and you got a little bit too hesitant, or other members going down at unfortunate times, Pocky being caught out at certain places, not using translocate. A lot of things culminating in what is now going to have to be the absolute perfect defense for Green Leaves, but based on how this map has been going, based on how Hollywood went, it's hard to believe it'll happen.
It's the thing you've got to say, there's nothing really upon which you could say Green Leaves can pull off a defense like this. The opening frag onto Luke is nice out of Zerafi, but got a long road ahead of them.
It's a good, bit of revenge, considering what Faith has been doing to them all game.
That's how it feels.
Zerafi's like, well, I'll get you one back. And this is, again,
Faith,
very good control against Faith. This is improvement in some small areas, and they're going to need a lot of improvement in a lot of areas to actually win this map and go to Game 5.
Certainly give credit where it is due. Green Leaves. This is now where the cart starts to get into threatening territory, but it's also where they have their best opportunities to defend.
Okay, so they do need to really start, engaging somewhere around here, because one good push, one winning fight from Global Esports means they do cap. So we're already in a space where Green Leaves kind of on the back foot.
You can't just let it happen to you. You do have to take the bull by the horns, or the Reinhardt by the hammer, I suppose, and that's Luke already down. So Green Leaves, if they can get a good cleanup, they can charge up the ultimates they need for what will be the subsequent fight. They get Little Rex as well. Might Team Xeno fine. They did pick up Xeon Flux, which is nice.
This is honestly a decent amount of kills. Faith does get you one back, though. You got to always be watching out for this guy. In fact, that's a big enough kill that Global Esports have already reset, and now Green Leaves are on 5 members and one of their most important members, because that's where the grab's at.
They've got other ultimates, and they've just barely got a lead in that department. They need to get a big shatter or really anything. They can't be hesitant on Transcendence either. They go ahead and throw that one out. Unfortunately, the shatter got nothing. Sonaira, good charge, but no kill. It's Global Esports back. Now 10 comes back in. Both grabs out either side. Self-destruct from Pocky doesn't get much, but they have foul little ranks. The cart is right on the cusp here. Kim Yute eats a stun. Will also eat some damage and go down. And Green leaves by the skin of their pearly whites, I have to say.
Do you, though?
I do. I really do.
And what that also says now for the Green Leaves is that, okay, they barely won this engagement. 10 barely got back in time. In fact, Kim Yute actually got the first grab, but 10 with his own grab, comboed up with Pocky's self-destruct, just a little bit more effective, and they bought themselves more time, but it feels like borrowed time. It feels like eventually this all buckles because they don't have a lead anymore. It costs them everything just to maintain this defense, and now Global Esports are walking in like this could be the one.
This is already good. Oh, absolutely disgusting. They just walk right up and take him. Sound Barrier absolutely rescues Luke as well. That counter trade could have maybe kept Green Leaves in it, maybe long enough for 10 to get a grab or something, but no such luck. 10 is down, Sonaro's respawned, but he's got a long walk back. And this is looking like it will be the last bit of defense that Green Leaves will muster in this series. You'll credit them. They came relatively close. Sonaro tries to come in for the rescue, but doesn't get the shatter, can't get the damage. Global Esports finish off Rialto and will take the series.
And you're starting to believe, okay, there is a world where Green Leaves do manage to complete a hold here, and that is if, okay, 10 doesn't get pushed into the river there by Faith. They keep everyone alive. They get the first grab out. They maintain momentum. But like we've noticed and like we said, throughout the course of Rialto, Hollywood, and other places, when Faith is on the other side, where Global Esports are playing, they take the tempo out of your hands and the pacing out of your hands and suddenly just flip the game on its head. And straight from that moment onwards, you probably knew it was going to be basically impossible or incredibly difficult for Green Leaves to continue in a 3-1 result. We did say going into Rialto, very likely now considering what happened on Hollywood.
And it's a little bit of a heartbreaker as well because Rialto is easily the more one-sided of them all, mostly precluded on just how harrowed Green Leaves' offense was. Like, I would barely even say they actually got much of an opportunity to attack. Really, the cart movement was just incidental in the moments where Global Esports maybe had to cede space for the purposes of a fight's proceedings. They didn't ever really win a fight so much, and that means you're in a situation where you only have to lose one on the defense. So it did feel like the weakest for Green Leaves and also the strongest for Global Esports. The defense was phenomenal, just how disruptive they were over and over and over. And look, I'd say the potential is there for Green Leaves, but things are falling short, and they're falling short consistently.
And we're in a space where, look, Rialto, if this went to B, maybe we even get to C. This could have been a lot more competitive, obviously because there's more of the map to play, but also because you have a lot of moments where you look at Green Leaves and you're thinking, they're actually playing quite decently here. They've got a decent track of ults going. They've got a decent number of wins on the board in terms of team fights, and they make one mistake, okay. That doesn't cost them because you can fall back to B. You got other places on the map you can play with, but because the cart position and the win location was where it was, they only get one mistake. And if you make one mistake, that's it. They made the one mistake and they lost.
And I mean, given how many mistakes had been made on the attack phase as well, like you'd expect that they're going to make one mistake. I mean, a part of me is surprised that it actually didn't come sooner, but I should actually say that that's more to the credit of Green Leaves there. But at any rate, look, it still falls the predictable way. I think the question now for Global Esports, having won this one and looking better as the series went on, is look, they placed, like you said, they ended up quite low in the standings last season compared to what you would have hoped from the team in terms of expectations. So in later weeks, can they actually pick up even more wins? Because this is a promising sign for the newly rebuilt squad.
It certainly is. I think Green Leaves did decently well. I think for Global Esports, it's not a shaky start at all. I think if this one went too far, it would have been shaky. I think they look pretty good as well. What it does say is Green Leaves have the opportunity to maybe take one off the board against another one of the top 6 teams, but we are going to go to a bit of a break. And speaking of those top 6 teams, let's take a look at Xavier versus Jupiter when we return after this.